my quilting friends, Leah Day here with a new quilting video on the Grace Qnique. So today I'm quilting a pretty big design on a baby quilt that I'm just trying to knock out these corners with a new design. I'm kind of tired of stitching these spirals. So what I decided to fill in this area is with a foundational design called Ocean Currents. So this starts out with a huge spirally line. So I'm going to stitch the line. It's going to have some wobbles in it, and then occasionally I'm going to stitch kind of a hook shape or a spiral shape into that line. And as I'm going, as you can see, I'm taking out a lot of these pens so they're out of my way, because as I'm moving the whole quilt pretty quickly through the machine. I don't want to be running up against pens. Notice how wide apart I'm having my hands. I'm setting my hands up here. Nice distance. And I still have to stop every 3 to 4 inches, take out some pins, and also just generally reposition the quilt and make sure that I can see what I'm doing and it feels natural. Even though it's a long arm, even though I've got lots of space in the arm of the machine, it's still going to be a start-stop process. You know, you're still going to have to stop and reposition and get things shifted around so it works for you. So there we go. We've got 2 beautiful spirals and a huge foundational line that's just running diagonally through that space. So I'm going to just stitch right to the edge of the quilt, maybe about a 1/4 inch from the edge. Now I'm going to travel stitch over, and I'm going to echo this line. I'm going to stitch about, this is a little less than 1 inch apart. Those lines are a little bit less than 1 inch apart. I just want a lot of space between those lines so it fills in really quickly. And what I'm doing here is I'm echoing. I'm going to echo the foundation to the left and right side, and it's the echoes that are going to fill in this space completely with a beautiful flowing texture. It's okay if your lines go a little bit further apart and a little bit closer together sometimes. You know, some angles here I can't really see. The foot kind of gets in my way, or I just, can't see exactly what I'm doing, and that's all right. You just have to make it work the best you can. And then also understand that this is kind of a flowing, organic design, and it's okay if those lines come a little closer together and a little further apart. So now I'm going to travel stitch down, and I'm going to echo again. I'm just going to continue stitching lines, echoing to one side of that starting line, and it's going to fill in the texture to that side. Then I'll travel stitch or break thread and move to the opposite side, and I'm going to fill it in just the exact same way. I think it's a really fun design. It's going to work great in areas like this where I already broke the quilt down into a smaller chunk using one design, and so this was really easy to fill in into that one small section. You could also stitch it kind of across your quilt, left to right, or kind of do a path straight down the length of your quilt. That'll work too. It's one of those designs you can do a lot with. It could also fill in blocks. You can see just how quickly this is filling. And see how far apart my hands, I am stretching my hands out so that way I don't have to stop and reposition them so often. I've got a little bit of a ripple here. That's probably because I wasn't holding onto the quilt firmly enough. So bring my hands just a little bit closer. And remember to stop and reposition, smooth it out a little bit more often. That kind of ripple can happen. It's not a big deal, and it's not the end of the world. I'm certainly not going to go and rip that line out. It's probably just a little bit of fabric kind of pulling in one direction. We were kind of running on the bias of the fabric, so it probably just didn't like that. So you can already see this pretty texture that's coming together just with 4 lines of echoing right here. So I'm going to jump ahead and then show you what it looks like when the opposite side is nearly filled. So here you can see this beautiful texture taking shape on the quilt. I just love it. So I've moved out and I've just been echoing the opposite side of the foundational line, just careful stitching, and really I'm just eyeballing it. Sometimes my lines come a little closer together. Sometimes they spread out a little wider than 1 inch, and you know what? That's okay. It's not the end of the world. It's not something I'd stop and rip out. The key with bed quilting is speed and smooth movement. So I'm keeping my hands spaced out pretty wide so that way I can move quickly and I can also move smoothly and form these shapes. Of course, whenever I travel stitch, I definitely slow down so that way I don't stitch off the line or make it messy. So really, that's the key. I hope that you enjoyed learning how to quilt ocean currents with me.